Okay, we're working on a little side project here on the Scout. I'm going to start working on the foils, and just to hold them steady rather than trying to hold them on with my hands, we're just going to stick down a block of wood to the table here with some double-sided carpet tape. I seem to have bought the wrong kind of carpet tape or double-sided tape here, because this is the super thin invisible kind, which means you can't exactly get the backing paper off. I don't know if it's just me and my older fingers or my older eyes, but I've never had much fun peeling stickers off of things. Now I don't know if this green foam is going to absorb any more resin than the white foam did, but I'm going to assume that it will. So I'm going to mix up a little extra and add a little bit more fairing compound to the mix, because on this one here we ended up with quite a rough surface as the foam just kind of sucked the resin out of the mix. Of course, I suppose I could do it in two stages. In other words, just brush on some resin here, let it soak up, and then do another batch, which I might actually do. I think that's going to be the plan. We'll see how that works when I do the other side. Well, that answers the question as to where all the resin is going when I did the white foam main seating in the previous videos, because my cup, which was almost third full, is darn near empty now. So let's see how this one is stuck to the tape any better, I doubt. The objective here is to get as thin a coat but as smooth a coat as possible. So reducing the weight of the resin fill, but also sealing up the foam, because tomorrow, after this is set, we will give it a light sand and glass, and then repeat for the second side. Alright, I think that is about as much as I'm going to play with this. It's going to take a good sanding tomorrow, smooth this out really well. I'm pretty sure the foam is still absorbing resin, because the texture is starting to again look like 60 grit sandpaper. So even though I've sanded the foam, pre-coated and filled it, it's still absorbing resin. It's the next morning and this is all cured, or at least it's not fully cured, but it's cured enough to sand. And again, it's a pretty rough surface, so I really don't know what's going on there, because even the low density filler should not be that lumpy. I mean, I've stirred it very well, but obviously epoxy is soaking in, maybe swelling up the foam itself. But we're going to sand this, and then we're going to glass one side and repeat the whole process on side two on another day. So I'm going to hit it with, what have I got on here, 80 grit. But I got to be careful not to, sand into any edges. We want to keep this pretty smooth. Okay, with the foil sanded and I did kind of sand the edges, get them all smooth. The dagger board calls for 3 layers of the fiberglass as provided, which is obviously 6 ounce, and 2 layers, I'll put this on the right side here, 2 layers on the rudder. So, I'm just going to lay out, I don't know which is the best way to go here, but we shall just put a piece over here. Now what it doesn't describe is how much you're going to attempt to try and get the edge of this glass to roll over, because there are some thick areas here. So I'm going to cut a pleat there and see if I can get that to fold down a bit. And I think for this I'm literally just going to pour some on and brush it around to get it to just be where I want it to be. Small pieces of glass like this are always hard to do because, you know, if you brush too hard, they're just going to move on you. Then you've got to try and get it back in position. So right now it's kind of, the job is to just stick it down and get it to stay where you want it, under the weight of the resin. Being pretty liberal because of course I need to add another layer of glass. Can't imagine the foam is going to absorb that much more resin, so problem is that I didn't seal up the thick edges here with thickened epoxy. Therefore, sticking this edge down here, it is going to really absorb a lot of resin. I think I'm going to just go with my 3 pieces, and I shall worry about reinforcing the edges and ends another time. Now on these foils, I take it the intention of the foam is to get this as light as possible. Now I don't know whether foam is any cheaper to CNC than marine ply, but I'm not so sure that after laying down 3 layers, that's both sides, so 6 layers of glass onto this foam is going to be any lighter than a piece of marine ply, maybe with only 1 layer of 4-ounce glass on the outside. That would all be necessary. But I'm not questioning the designer's motives on that, but I don't know whether, you know, the foam is the cheaper way to go in the kit, lighter to ship, all of those factors. But honestly, on my end, this would have been easier to just have a marine ply foil CNC cut, shaped with all of the bevels and whatever on there, and then just put 1 layer of fiberglass on it. Now that we've got enough resin on there, it's time to just try and squeegee off any excess and clean it off in the old grunge cup here. I mean, I was pretty liberal on the putting it on there. so used to epoxy coating and fiberglassing wood, which of course, you know, is going to soak up resin. And of course this foam would, if I hadn't sealed it, pre-coated it first. So I think that's where I added a bit more resin than necessary, but that's okay. Better to be taking it off than having spots that didn't get enough. Okay, I'm going to let that one sit and go over to the centerboard. The importance of doing this heavy squeegeeing here is with 3 layers of glass. I want to make sure that they are all compacted together well, so there's no sort of floating glass in piles of epoxy, because that will not be as strong as 3 layers bound together tightly with minimal amount of resin. And by doing so, kind of forcing the air out, you may not see on the camera, but I can sort of see that white glint of fiberglass fibers. That generally indicates that there is air trapped in the fibers themselves and or in the excess epoxy. So we will just keep doing this until no more sort of comes off. Alright, I think it's time to just let that sit. As it starts to thicken up, then I can come back and smooth it out. Alright, we have some seriously sharp edges on there, and as much as it's just me working in the shop, I kind of prefer not to get cut. So, being that it is quite sharp, I'm wearing gloves. So really all I'm trying to do is just get the edge of here so nobody gets hurt. Pretty slippery on those pyramids. Would it be best to just do it on the table? I'm afraid she's going to end up on the floor as I work it. The whole thing's going to slide off. And it's flat enough, I suppose. Now with 3 layers of glass, it takes quite a bit of epoxy to saturate it through. And I don't remember how much resin pumps I used on the other side, so whatever's left over, I've got a keel to glue on a different boat. I think that's all we're going to cover in working on the foils on episode 1. We're going to continue on in episode 2, whereby I've also got some wooden parts for the rudder, and we're going to add some epoxy with graphite to turn the rudder and the foils black. And as always, thank you very much for watching. Hey, if you like this video, do consider giving me a thumbs up and or becoming a subscriber. See you next episode.